plus news radio. I mean, all kinds of stuff that he's done over the years. You've done voiceover work too. You've done it all in Hollywood. You like the big maca there in Hollywood, are you not?
Am I on? Am I on? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. I was trying not to react. I didn't know if I was actually on screen yet. I'm solid. I'm a solid mid-level celebrity
Nice.
here in Hollywood.
You're above the sea level. You gotta be. You gotta be in that B plus.
I don't know. Maybe I think C. Maybe a B minus.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Dave is with me tonight, and we're obviously talking about the UAP topic. And I want to get his. I don't know how much you've been able to read about it, but the Arrow report just came out. Historical report.
I haven't read I've only skimmed the report itself.
That's all you need to do.
Because I keep having to take breaks to go, what the fuck?
You're right.
And that's and I'm a slow reader to begin with. But once you add in the every 3 lines of what the fuck, it really is arduous.
It is. And it's, I mean, they didn't even get Senator Reid's home state right. I mean, how do you fuck up that bad?
Yeah.
Was a monkey like just throwing this at the wall and saying, yeah, this is good, we're going to do this? Or
and it's clearly they just like did a Google search for things that sound like UFOs for their programs that may have been confused. I think, who was it posted the ridiculous segment where they brought up and as a Canadian, the Avro car.
Yep.
As a program that may have been confused, in their list of things that people confused for UFOs. But even in their list of it, even in their description of it, they admit the thing never flew more than 3 feet off the ground, never flew off the Avro private testing ground. So it's pretty hard to imagine that anyone could have been confused by the Avro car. Oh, and it wasn't a top secret program either. It's something all Canadians know about,
I mean, I want one in my garage just to say I can go down to the local neighborhood and beat around kids with it. But I mean, for crying out loud, it's absurdity.
It is a ducted fan vehicle that was unstable and never worked. And ducted fan vehicles are basically the technology that has been developed for most of what might be coming down the road is flying cars.
Right.
Like that technology has been advanced since then and works. You can go online right now and see dozens of ducted fan vehicles that use a ducted fan is basically just a fan inside a tube.
Right.
And so, there's dozens of those on the market now or coming to market right now. So the Avro car was just like a very early attempt to build one, and it failed miserably. Yeah,
it was the most unstable looking thing. It was like if you took the worst possible Frisbee throw that you could make, that was the Avro car.
Well, that's because what they found out is that disc-shaped vehicles are aerodynamically unstable.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have any good aerodynamic properties.
Well, unless you spin it so fast that the second you got in it, you'd vomit.
Yeah. Frisbees, it works great.
Fantastic. People, not so much.
Yeah.
It would be bad.
Absurd. But again, almost all the things that they listed as potential, and it's like, and it's a complete bullshit. The whole notion that all UFOs were just dark projects that have been misidentified. I mean, no one has misidentified a craft with wings and a tail and jet exhaust.
Exactly.
For UFOs. No one.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's not like a plane is a plane. Okay. Even though a flying wing, let's take for example the stealth bomber and the stealth fighter. Okay.
Yeah.
But it still looks like a plane, right? That's not an orb. It's not a bell. It's certainly not. I gotta decline that one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. It's almost absurd the amount of crap that they're trying to put out there. And Kirkpatrick at one point put out this, he was talking about, and I'm so sorry I don't know the name of it. I don't remember the name of it. But he put out this thing that was, hey, they're doing great things with ion thrusters. And some of these could be, ion thrusters, right? And what he linked to, or what he talked about in his article, and I could probably go back and find it, but it was so absurd what he was saying was in our sky that it was as laughable as the Avro car. It really was honestly just stupid.
Yeah. Ion thrust drives exist.
Sure.
They've been tested on satellites and like probes going out into deep space for that. But they really only have a function in space, as far as I understand. They're the amount of propulsion you can get from them is pretty minuscule. So if you have any resistance to it, it's useless. It has to be in space to work.
Right.
And there it works fine. Takes forever to accelerate, but they work.
So they call it's called the undefined claims 4 minutes for its silent ion propulsion drone. It's called Silent Ventus. And it was put in Florida. The silent flying dish rack is what it looks like. And it literally, let me see if I'll pop it up here just for a second. Pop it up?
Sure. Yeah, do I need to go to gallery view?
No, I don't think so. I think, if I'm correct, more options, view. You can tell, ladies and gentlemen, I'm on a new technology tonight because I don't usually
use the Microsoft. Wi-Fi. Yeah, you know what? I've used this a few times in business calls. It's a terrible.
It is. It will not be being used again after this evening because I had a recording that I did a while back with someone, and it was like crashing out. So they're like, "Oh, use this," and no, it's not. It sucks. No. So this will be
I've had meetings with people that work for Microsoft, so they have to use it. And about halfway through the meeting, they gave up, and we just got on Zoom.
Yeah, and maybe we do that. It's just apps. Is it View? No. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll keep working on this at my side.
Is it Open Share Tray? Have you tried that?
Open Share Tray. Where am I here?
Open Share Tray, and then you get a desktop.
Let me do this.
It's a great ad for this.
It really is.
Teams,
this is
Microsoft.
Fantastic Teams work. It's fantastic. Rooms, notes, view, people, chat.
There's a little arrow in the control bar that I can't get off your face for some reason.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, wait. Pin, hide, spotlight for everyone. Pin. You know what? Anyway, so you could go to newatlas.com, drones, unidentified ion propulsion drone, and look it right up because my technology sucks again this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess next time I'll be going back to my old podcast host. So anyway, it's a joke.
What were you using, StreamYard or?
Yeah, I was using StreamYard, and then I was like, because I was having problems with the caching. Apparently, when you record in your browser and the caching comes through, it can like close out your browser or something. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so
back to UFOs.
So it basically, this thing, they call it the flying drying rack because it looks like you put dishes in it, and it flies and dries your dishes, and then you're done.
Yeah, and that's the craft that I think they said its maximum height that it's flown at is about 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
At about like 10 miles an hour or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. It's fantastic.
So brilliant. Clearly that's the Tic Tac.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what I saw from 80,000 to 20,000 feet.
It fits one of the descriptions, silent.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So that's the dumbass way that debunking works. Is they go, well, these silent craft are obviously this thing that's silent, or another thing that's silent. Have you ever seen a paper airplane? Clearly, these are paper airplanes because they're silent.
So, here it is. Look at Steve finally found it.
Oh, there we
Can
are.
you see it? Can
you
see it?
Yeah,
there it is. There you go. There's your big piece of equipment that is just killing it right now.
You can see where a fighter pilot
would mistake that.
Would get confused by something like that if that came, loping through restricted airspace at 30 feet.
Churning up the waves.
Yeah, they might get a little confused by it.
Yeah, that's the brilliance of what we have going on within Arrow.
And the mainstream press will report it as though it's real. Makes sense. But they'll report as though that is an actual explanation because they don't. Well,
it will be the explanation. Hey, it's just this.
And it really
Great
is
advertisement for Silent Ventus, but
yeah, and I would say mostly it's not a conspiracy amongst the press. It's mostly that they, like most people, don't want to really confront the reality. That there's something going on that is unexplained.
Not only that, but I've had a lot of discussions with others that talk about this, and I don't remember who came up with saying that it was going to be, this paradigm altering shift of reality that they call ontological shock. It's kind of like a buzzword in our community with the UFO community that
yes,
it's like,
I think it was
cold heart.
Mac. No, John Mack, I think, started it.
Yeah.
I think in his first book about abductions, he coined the term ontological shock.
It's not necessarily incorrect.
No.
I think that what is the biggest problem is that across the United States, and I said this even in my last interview, I was saying the same thing. I think young people, America, Canada, even Mexico, most quote unquote first world countries, Europe, once whatever is revealed, the young population will go, oh, well, let me take a selfie, and it will be nothing. It will be absolutely, there will be no shock, there will be no scare, unless, of course, it's really a situation where we need to be.
Unless it's a really scary thing, which is potential.
It is potential.
Well, I'm an elderly man, but very fit, very fit.
Sure, beautiful too, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm old enough that I remember back in the early 70s or the late 60s, a book came out by Alvin Toffler called Future Shock.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about how the rapidly accelerating advance of technology was going to cause social disruption and chaos and an inability for the public to keep up and adapt and maintain their belief structures and their respect for governments. All of this was going to fall apart because of the insanely rapid advance of technologies back in the early 70s.
Right.
What happened was nobody had a problem coping with technology other than Alvin Toffler.
What also, I go back and now, please don't mistake this as saying climate change isn't real. That I'm not one of those people. But if you go back into the turn of the century and you can go to newspaper.com and they have all these things and you can keyword it. Back in the 1800s, 1850s, 1860s, they were saying we're stripping our land too much, we're destroying our environment. So I'm not saying I'm one of those people that says that the environment isn't being impacted, in our our world isn't impacted by those things. What I'm saying is, you go back in time and you see there's an awful lot of hyperbole when you talk or when reporting is. Now, whether that's just we need to have eyes that are on our reading, I can understand that. At the same time, you get into this ontological shock thing and you talk about, well, everybody's going to be running around scared. And I don't think, like I said, the first world, and I don't like using first world, third world country, but it is what it is. It's reality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those civilizations on our planet that maybe are, I don't know if it's simpler or believe differently in maybe a Western idealization or ideal, what we think every day to day and what we see and what we endure every single day, which is not always great. But I think of those societies, and I think of especially societies that are held down by their own governments, and I mean really held down. I'm talking about situations where we're you say anything about the government, you're dragged off and you're never seen before, right? I'm talking about that type of government.
Yeah.
And if I think about myself as a world citizen, I think about, well, what will that impact have on those societies? And I have to think that way because that's the way I think. I think, well, how much of this is real, not real, and what would actually happen to those people? That bothers me. That being said, if I have cancer, I want to know. I don't want my doctor to hide it from me.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he's going to say, hey, I've got a shot that I can give you and you'll live to 1,000, I want to know that too. I don't like people telling me what I can and cannot know. I don't.
Yeah, what you're capable of absorbing. Yeah.
Right. That is, to me, that's like daddy talking to his 5-year-old that he, can't go outside or has to go outside. I'm an adult. We're adults,
Yeah. It's what it's what religions rely upon. The notion that there are deep mysteries that you can't know, but you got to trust us.
Right.
Follow all these other rules because there are even deeper mysteries that we can't tell you.
That's that, and that was, you're not wrong. I fought back against my religious upbringing, but it was, well, when you can't answer a question, well, he works in mysterious ways. Well, that to me in my brain doesn't work for me. I just, listen, to anybody that has religion and can live it and love it, I honor and I respect your ways, but I just can't do it myself. That's me.
Although now with the, as I go deeper into the subject of UFOs and the issues of consciousness and
the woo.
The woo stuff that you can't really ignore because it's
you can't
it's connected to all the nuts and bolts parts.
It's one and the same, or if it's not one and the same, it's certainly correlated between the two to an extent that. So now, I'll tell you, it's wild.
Yeah, no, like when I read Diana Pasulka's stuff, I go, well, all right, now I got to think. I always just wrote off, biblical stories of miracles as just being bullshit that was put out there to sucker people into staying in the religion. And now I'm going, oh, okay, maybe people did levitate, because now I'm believing stories of abductees. I'm believing their stories where they claim to have been levitated through, through solid walls. I go, well, if that's happening now, it was probably happening then, and we would just have a different way of interpreting it. And
have you read the Book of Enoch?
I haven't. No.
Read the Book of Enoch, but don't read it in the sense of religion. Read it as an account of an extraterrestrial or alien abduction.
Yeah. Oh, I will.
It will blow your mind, because I reread it recently, and I reread it just as that. Okay, I'm going to read this as a science fiction, right? I'm going to read this as an experiencer, and it changes the whole thing. It is like it's mind blowing.
Yeah, well, the story of Lourdes really fits perfectly into a UFO narrative.
It does.
Or the Fatima and or the what was I thinking of? The tales of St. Francis's encounter. Sounds exactly like a UFO encounter, complete with radiation burns.
Right. It's when you start to rewrite history, or not necessarily rewrite history, maybe that history is correct, but when you reinterpret that history, there are some interesting things that begin to pop out. And it's the same with, let's say, are you familiar with the Baghdad battery?
The which one?
The Baghdad battery. So,
no, I don't think so.
So this is called the Baghdad battery.
Oh, wait a minute. No, that's the urn they found that yes. In Mesopotamia.
And they actually recreated this thing, They made
and it works.
And it works.
Yeah.
Now, this is a civilization, mind you, that didn't have the wheel, but they had electric lights.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on there? Because
they know how to convert chemical energy into electrical energy.
Who told them that?
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? Right. Yeah. Like, and it works with an acidic compound that they put in. I can't remember what they call it, a galvanic cell. So a galvanized cell, electroplating and electrotherapy. There's just these things that are in the world and in our world history that I'll tell you, and maybe I get a little off topic here, but I think we've done one of two things. We've either had help, and it's not properly defined as such, or we've lost technology to time. And there are some amazing people out there that are doing more work. Oh, one of your lights went. I saw it.
Yeah.
So that's a neat little thing.
Let me get my headphones.
So yeah, this was that's all good. So that was the Baghdad battery right there, and then there's
and there's also there's like device, I forget the name of it, that they found that appears to be a mechanical computer.
Yeah, so that was found in the ocean, and I think it's called the oldest computer. There is a word for it. So it's called the Antikythera mechanism. So it
Mm-hmm.
should be right here. So they solved the mystery of the oldest computer. But this was it here. And again, like I said, I think that there are certainly some things. It was a 2,000-year-old Greek computer, hand-powered orrery model of the solar system, described as the oldest known example of an analog computer used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. Now, I don't want to give away that people and human beings haven't been, how do you say this, cool and understanding. I mean, they were just as smart back then as we were today. They just didn't have the tools with which to figure some things out. But
yeah, we
clearly,
didn't have the energy production facilities, or yeah. I mean, I remember as a kid reading Plato, and one of the things that struck me when I was first reading Plato is, nothing's changed.
right.
Those people are exactly like the people I know today. They're exactly like when they're all gathering around and talking, about heady issues. They're exactly like me and my friends today.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking that as a teenager and just going, "Oh yeah, this human beings have been really smart for a long time and have been sophisticated, but they just lacked certain technologies. So that we may have had certain technologies that we lost over time. There's no reason to think that's, probably we have a very small sampling of the historical record, really.
No,
I mean, like,
Alexandria was burned too, and possibly Alexandria might have actually been burned to protect those secrets. I mean,
yeah. Well, look,
when
and we just discovered that in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe,
Mhm.
which pushes back the age of advanced civilization by 15,000 years.
Yeah.
So basically doubles the age of human civilization.
Which amazingly, if you think about it, what just happened with the James Webb, they just doubled the age of the universe. They thought to be
Yes.
16 billion. We're now thinking 32. And are we going to put another one up there and say, 64?
Yeah.
What's going to happen once we catch up with our reality of our own universe?
Yes. Oh, no. And then, of course, on top of that, about 15 years ago, the scientific community, astrophysicists had to come out and admit that 95% of the universe is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not a lot of room for smugness
No, there
in our
isn't. It's
in
out
our
there though.
achievements.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's certainly out there. I hear a
Yeah.
lot of times you hear very competent physicists say we can't have been visited because the distances are too vast. Yet Einstein's theory of relativity, which has been proven over and over and over by humans, allows for time travel. It allows for faster than light travel if you follow a few simple rules. Now, technologically speaking, we're not there, or at least I
Hmm.
don't think we're there.
Yeah.
We might be, and they're hiding something. I don't know. But the thing is that that's just such myopic. And you can't use the two words together. I know that, but it's myopic thinking. How's that?
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not
especially
looking at it.
no, and you even have like contemporary physicists and mathematicians putting out theories that space-time might not be real. That it might just be an emergent property of a universe that's really a product of how we observe it, not how it actually exists.
Right.
I think it was I'm trying to think if it was Max Tegmark I heard talking about how that distance itself might just be an illusion created by entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are tightly entangled seem close together. Things that are loosely entangled appear to us to be far apart. But there's no actual the distance itself doesn't actually exist.
Which, when you think about it, is part of entanglement and the observable quote unquote universe, right? But it's
Hmm.
also when you look at entangled pairs, right? If you look at one, the other one is doing the same thing at any distance.
Yeah.
So you have to at some point you have to put those two together, right? You have to answer how and why. A, how do you know that? But B, if that's the case, and one thing is here, is that scalable? Well, if
Yeah.
a civilization a million years ahead of us or more, when you think about what we know as universal, quote, time, then you have to ask the question, well, if that's the case, then what do we as humans with 30,000 years of life on Earth, with real life on Earth? I mean, I know we can go back 50, 100, whatever, but I'm talking about real people that are making these types of things really over the past 2,000 years, maybe to real advancement, unless we've lost civilization along the lines somewhere. Which, if you think about it, if we have a civilization that's a couple million years old, we wouldn't have much left of what they were, because entropy itself wouldn't allow it. Look at how fast a car will rust. I mean, you can put a 1970 Nova in 1970. If you put it near a beach and you rain on it, there's no existence of it anymore. It's probably just a couple pieces here and there. Now put that scale on millions of years, and you can see entire cities, everything would just be lost. You wouldn't
not even cities, but the actual surface of the Earth gets recycled over time. There's a tectonic induction, so that the actual surface of the planet has been swapped out, many times over the course of the history of the planet. So
just like the human body, every 7 years.
So if there was a civilization that existed, but then the very surface of the Earth was absorbed into the mantle, then we'd have no record of it.
No record. So to say that we haven't done these things before is maybe true, but it's maybe not true. Now, when you think about the UAP, when we start thinking about whether we want to call them extraterrestrials, like the Aero Office and our friend Mr. Kirkpatrick says, may not be factually true. It's very possible it's a cryptoterrestrial. It's very possible that it's a life form that has been on Earth a lot longer and has maybe taken to the seas. And you think about it, makes actually more sense, because 70% of the Earth is covered in water, and we have only, as human beings, looked at about 5 to 7% of the oceans, maybe as much as 10, and most of that is around land masses because we can get to it. So really the true, and let's talk about under the Antarctic ice or under the Arctic ice. I mean, let's think about that, where there are greater disturbances with magnetics, with the poles. There are so many theories that are out there that we maybe as humans should really think about.
People who keep clinging to Einstein as their get out of jail free card for thinking about it. It's well, it's impossible that they could get here. Why would they, or why would they? Who would spend that amount of time? And again, they keep putting it in human terms. They keep thinking about it like a human would think about it, And a human might say, oh, I don't know if I really want to spend the next 30,000 years traveling somewhere. But if you're a creature that lives a billion years,
30,000 years is 3 days.
Yeah. What's the big deal?
Yeah. And so it's certainly, it's a wild time. And I think that we're going to learn more about a couple of things here over the next few months. I have a couple of theories that I'll put out there, maybe a couple predictions. One is, I think we're going to learn more about our own backyard with relation to specific biosignatures that may or may not have been picked up by the European Space Agency, confirmed by Canada and the United States from work that has been done through the James Webb Telescope. I would imagine that's coming. I would imagine we'll be talking about technological signatures that have been seen by, again, ESA, confirmed by Canada and the United States with their time on the telescope. And when I say techno signatures, I would say probably at some point they have seen evidence of lights that are made from whatever planet they're on. And maybe the fact is that they're really far away. So consequently, if we're going to go through the distance situation, we're looking at them, and we can prove that we're looking at them back in time, but maybe not if you look at other theories. So we have to think about that. I would imagine that's probably going to be something that will drop in 2024 at some point.
Yes, I think as I said, everyone. A thing that's been leapt into the culture recently is the term Overton window, which I had never heard till recently, but now I hear it constantly. Um, and so one of the things the Overton window has shifted to include is the term Overton window. But it also, like, I'm thinking only a few years ago, Avi Loeb was mocked by all of his peers for saying, well, for studying exoplanets, we should look for pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't get anyone to take that notion seriously just a handful of years ago. That he said, if we, stop, looking for, you don't just look for organic molecules in the atmosphere, look for pollution, look for industrial pollution in the atmosphere. And people thought that's crazy. No, that we can't get funding for that because that's lunatic talk. That's UFO little green man talk.
Right.
And now that's a huge part of what most exoplanet researchers are doing right now is looking for pollution on other planets.
That's right. And it's amazing. There has been some, I guess, complete 180s in certain fields, and one of those is government. Right. Let's think pre-2017, before Lou Elizondo, before Leslie King. Before all the colleagues that worked on that work. I don't want to just name two, but I don't want to get into naming everyone. There was a big parade of people involved in that. But pre-2017, someone there. Hello.
My daughter coming down the stairs.
Well, hello.
And waking the dogs up.
Oh, that's all good.
You don't need to sneak by.
No, she's good. So 2017, pre-2017, we're talking about everybody's basically batshit nuts that talks about this, right?
Oh, hold on one second there.
Yeah, go ahead. Do what you gotta do.
You may back to go to dinner with your grandma, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll see you later. Bye. Sorry about that.
All good. Hey, life goes on,
Yep.
That's what the world is about.
So please go back to what you were saying, so I can recap it for me.
So recapping. So if we go back and we think that pre-2017, any of this discussion was completely fringe, right? And so we're talking about the shift since 2017, right? So other industries, and I call, I know it's not technically an industry, but I call politics an industry because it really is, right? It's about survival. It's about power. It's the same thing that happens with any industry. Oil industry, it's about power and it's about money and it's about wealth. And I'm sorry, but that's the way a lot of political systems work, whether it's through PACs or whether it's through, donations direct, whether it's through influence when you get out of office. A lot of it has to do with money and power.
It becomes an ecosystem with a system for survival, just like amoebas have.
Exactly. So we and our friend the tardigrade, which is one of my favorite little things in the world. That thing is awesome. But if we think about it, right, let's think about it from the point of view of pre and post 2017. So you had this article come out in the Times, and it was received incredibly well by our community, the UFO community, but it was received pretty well by the general public at large, at least, here, Canada, United States, Mexico. And again, as I said, Western civilization was received quite well. But since then, we've had, for example, David Grush, the meeting with the hearing with Congress, and you've had I think a big shift amongst both sides of the aisle. Really, in the United States, we have the mainly two-party system. It's a pretty amazing thing when you say AOC and Matt Gaetz sitting across from each other discussing something without any type of momentum against it, right? Like there was just amazed me.
And no superficial political attacks at each other.
None.
No distraction. No, the fact that you have unanimous committees passing unanimous legislation authored by Kirsten Gillibrand and Marco Rubio, and then that you follow that up with unanimous Senate legislation passed by Chuck Schumer and Mike Rounds. These are
two people that couldn't be more opposite.
Yeah, who have not liked each other, have never supported each other's ideas, and suddenly, especially Schumer, who is the most powerful, Democrat in the country, aside from the president.
President, right?
He is like, he is a very, very powerful, but a very not outlandish, not a
No.
huge risk taker politically.
Nope.
And he's writing 73 pages of legislation with Mike Rounds that keeps talking about non-human intelligences
72 times, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that keeps that point for point goes through the places that have all long been conjectured that this technology is being hidden. Like very detailed, very bespoke legislation geared to exactly the information that he's being given by witnesses and whistleblowers. So you go, well, he must really think that those whistleblowers and those witnesses, and it's not just Grush, they've been in contact with, and Michael Rubio went public saying they've had multiple witnesses talking to them under oath and giving, and telling basically the same story.
Right.
And it's the only subject in the political world that is getting bipartisan harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And that story alone should be a front page story. Just that any subject is being
brings them together,
being taken care of in a bipartisan fashion. That should be news, just on that, and it's not.
It isn't. It
getting
isn't.
No coverage.
And you have to wonder about whether or not the message has gotten through to the mainstream media well enough. I maintain it has, and I wonder what the impetus is behind the scenes to not jump more on it, if they just feel that it is still a legacy of you don't have it unless you have the smoking gun. I maintain that when you have United States senators and United States congresspeople saying we're not alone, I can go right to the words of several congresspeople right now. And I have to name names. Everybody can look it up. They've all probably heard it in my audience, but that literally said, we are not alone. Why is that not a front page news item? Why is that not on the 5 and the 6 o'clock news? Why is it not headlining on CNN's website? If you said that, and I'm not saying, hey, this is my day was better, I don't want to be that guy, but I think if you said that in the 80s, that would have been on every channel. It would have been on everything, everywhere. And for some reason, from 2017 to 2024, it's not. And I don't know where that shift went.
If you said that in the past, for better or for worse, it would have, I'm saying it would have gotten notice in that it would have ended your career politically.
Probably.
But it would have gotten a lot of notice. God, now I'm blanking on his name. Who was running for the Democratic nomination?
Vivek?
No. This is
but he's not Democrat, he's Republican.
The guy with a really bad haircut.
Which one? There's a lot of them.
Oh God, why am I blanking on his name? But essentially, it came up in the debates that he was asked in the debates. There are reports that you've seen a UFO.
Oh, you're talking about not the old president.
No, he wasn't president. He was I can't.
I know who you're talking about. I'm blanking too. Yeah, but I know.
Yeah, this was back in, when was it? Was it the 2016 race? I can't. No, I think it might have been 2008.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, but it was. But essentially, he, and then all he said was, "Yeah, well, I did see something that we could not identify. So yes, I saw an unidentified object that was flying, and there were giggles, and his run for the nomination, which was he never had a good shot at it, but it ended that day."
Well, yeah, and so circling back to that, the obvious discussion around this has changed, and in fact, even in Canada, where you are from, you have a new, I don't know how she's new, but the science advisor, she just put out, or she was just in Parliament, and she was talking. She spoke to, I don't know who it was, members, but
Mary, God, God, today's a bad day for names with me.
No, I know I'm horrible with names, terrible.
Yes,
But
a member of Parliament from Manitoba.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry Maguire.
Okay,
Larry
good.
Maguire kind of pinned her down.
Yeah. Well, she just put out this. Well, she's got a report forthcoming, but she was talking about, it's like Canada, Safe Canada Skies or something like that, I think is the initiative, which I think is similar to the way and the reason that the United States is looking at these is because they're looking at them from a safe sky perspective. And she said that she has a report coming that is going to be very interesting about a lot of historical things. Now, she didn't actually tell us exactly what those historical things were because obviously a report is coming, but I have a feeling that there's going to be some pretty wild things that are going to be in there. I've talked to a couple of people behind the scenes that said, wait for that to drop. That's going to be fun. So I don't know what's in it. I haven't been told. I've just been told that it's supposed to be something significant. I'm actually trying to get her. I have a back channel going to actually get her to come on the show. So we're going to see if that can happen. If that can happen, boy, that's going to be a fun one. But
yeah, well, I know it's because I have to say Canada has been slower on the subject and more dismissive on the subject, more mocking in general whenever politicians are asked about it. And certainly Canada has clouded things by not having anyone who officially is in charge of investigating the subject.
right.
In fact, it's like the Canadian Air Force is not involved with it. I think it's basically all been sort of shunted off to Transport Canada. Is the official government agency that is supposed to be in charge of it, and their official stance is we don't investigate UFOs. So they're the ones.
Well, we don't tell you we investigate UFOs.
Yeah.
That's the real answer.
Yeah, but then you have Larry Maguire coming forward and talking about the Five Eyes agreements and the sharing of intelligence between the countries, and basically saying Canada has been involved with studying, cataloging, and maybe reverse engineering UFOs in coordination with the U.S.
Which in and of itself is another mind bomb. It's boom. I mean, it really is these just bombs dropping that people in mainstream media are afraid to come out with. And I think that I've heard this many times. There's some people that are on X I hate calling it X. It's Twitter.
Yeah.
I hate that. It sounds like a porn site. It's like it doesn't sound right to me. I think that's just but one big mind fuck from Elon Musk. I think he's just like, I'm gonna have everybody call it X because it sounds like porn, because he's just kind of weird.
And he thinks it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Rocket, everything he puts X on everything. Originally he wanted PayPal to be called X.
Yeah, it sounds like porn.
It's a stupid name.
It was funny. I had like the subscription to X. My wife's like, "What are you doing with X?" I'm like, "No, that's X. That's not.
Yeah,
it's not YouPorn. It's X. It's something else." Yeah. So, let me ask you a question. How do you? They after this Arrow report, they said that they're putting out these mobile devices that will be able to track UAP or be able to. How do you rectify them saying it's nothing, but we're going to put these out anyway?
Yeah, we're gonna create devices to try and
figure out what these things are.
Devices that seem tailor-made to address UFO accounts.
Right.
But the UFO accounts have all proved to be invalid.
Right. How do you reconcile that?
You can't really. I mean, you can just say, well, we just think it's important to have different sensor systems and bullshit that way. But basically, what it sounds like is the package of sensors that they're putting together. I mean, it sounds exactly like what Avi Loeb is putting together with the Galileo project. Sounds exactly like the stuff that UAPX is putting together for their research. Or was it the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies? It sounds exactly like the kind of things they're proposing. So they seem to be, again, it's technology that they're developing that seems to be specifically tailored to the stories that we're hearing about UFOs.
But there's nothing to see. It's all bullshit.
They've already proven that there's nothing to it.
So let's waste money on. So let's just throw money at figuring out what it is, but it's not real. I mean, don't. Yeah, it's bullshit. You guys are nuts.
Yeah. No, it'd be like saying there are no angels dancing on the head of a pin, but we're going to spend $1 billion to develop a really good microscope, just so that if we were to count the number of angels dancing on the head of a pin,
we could see it.
Just in case we have to. Right. It doesn't make any sense.
And a lot of the people that I've spoken to since that report, and it hasn't been a lot. We haven't even lived with it a week yet, but I know Rubio came out and was a little upset about this. Basically, the report takes the integrity of a person like David Grush and Lou Elizondo and of others in that area, and basically says they're liars. That's the way I repeat it. That's the way how did they put it? They were, I think that they were trying to use language that was something along the lines of, they were mistaken. It's an insider group of UFO. I don't know what they want to call them. These nuts.
Zealots,
that are
believers.
That are pushing this narrative on the Senate and the Congress, and
a small group of people that are in a circular conversation that keeps amplifying itself.
Right. And so two things are occurring there. One, you're calling these people, and one of them I personally happen to know very well, and I will tell you this person is I just say one of these people is one of the finest people I've ever met and known. Secondly, you're also saying that all of your senators that are believing in this and all of your Congress people that believe in this, they're stupid and nuts too.
Yeah, they've all been manipulated, deceived, or that they have developed some sort of a religious zeal for the subject.
It's almost like the skull and bones in Harvard, right? It's that's what they're basically equating this to, is that it's a bunch of nuts. And I'm going to say it that way because there was a report that came out. I think it was Chris Sharp, or maybe it was not Lou, maybe it was Ross, that had said something along the lines that they had heard that the first report that didn't come out had to be edited because of the language that it was used. So, which leads me to believe maybe someone, because I know Kirkpatrick had a huge hand in this report, may have been using derogatory terms, zealots, like that.
Yeah.
And it was watered down for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But how do we recognize the fact that these people have come forward, and I have my trust in them? I believe what was said on that floor under oath. I believe the ongoing narrative that I both hear outside which is around all over, and the stuff that I hear behind the scenes. I believe not everything is 100% correct, because I don't think everybody has 100% of the information. So there's got to be some supposition there, right? There's got to be, to an extent, there has to be a little bit of theory going on behind that.
Yeah. Well, that hearing, even if Grush hadn't been there, you take Grush out of that equation. What Ryan Graves and David Fravor told Congress is enough that it should be taken very seriously.
Right.
And that, and there's no one that's been able to knock holes in what either of those two men have told the authorities. No one's been able to explain the Tic Tac, and no one's been able to explain what was going on, in 2015 off of, was it northern Florida and Virginia?
East Coast, yeah, East Coast.
And no one's explained any of that.
Right.
No one's explained these things showing up on multiple sensor systems. There's just that, people sort of offhand saying, it was misinterpretation by the eyewitnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, but what about all the sensor systems? Well, sensor systems can glitch. Okay, so you're thinking, multiple systems on multiple craft
are failing.
Ships, shipboard systems,
Shipboard and airborne.
airborne systems in the fighter jets themselves. So all of these systems glitched in exactly the same way at the same time and returned the exact same information.
Right.
And those glitches happened to exactly correlate with the eyewitness testimony. And
Right.
it's eyewitness testimony from trained fighter pilots, people who we've spent millions of dollars honing their ability to identify everything in the sky. Because if they don't know how to do that,
Tragedy happens.
They get killed, and we lose $1 billion craft. With these, we lose these incredibly expensive airplanes, and human beings die.
Right.
And and then there's the other bullshit story. Everyone always says, well, eyewitness testimony is the worst testimony in the world. And in a criminal case like a bank robbery, yep, there's a validity to that. A lot of people have been wrongly imprisoned because of faulty eyewitness testimony, because people in a bank robbery, for example, are under duress. They aren't expecting it to happen. They're not trained observers. But I said, like, my example is, like, if you ask me to walk through, you say, Dave, go walk through that park. And then when I get to the other end of the park, you say, tell me all the plants you saw. And I'll say, well, I saw trees and some shrubs, grass, obviously, probably some weeds. I'd be pretty vague about it. Do the exact same thing, with a botanist, and you'll get a more detailed account. But tell the botanist, walk through that field and be on the lookout for any plants, and please give us a list of all the plants you see at the end of the walk. You're going to get a really detailed account. And that's the parallel to what we're getting when we send a fighter pilot up.
Right.
You're getting someone who's going up there knowing he's going to be asked the questions when he gets back. And knowing that, that every time they go up and fly, they come back and they have hours of debriefing.
Right.
And they have to account for everything they see. They have to be able to recreate it. They have to be able to do, drawings and graphs and do the math. They know that they have to be prepared and they have to observe everything, and that they are trained to look for everything. So the notion that to compare a fighter pilot going into a situation where they know they're going to be debriefed to somebody at a bank robbery misidentifying the culprits.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah. So
it's not the same.
Yeah, and anyone who knows anything about the psychology of it knows it's bullshit.
Right. Well, see, here is the problem with, like, let's say like the Mick West of the world. It's a pelican, or it's a whatever the fuck he says it is. It's a bird, whatever. People that are well-intentioned, intelligent people hear this being spewed out on CNN, and CNN, it's one of his, he's the CNN darling for everything debunk. The average person is not going to dig. They just aren't. And it's not to say that people are lazy. It's that people are going about their lives, right? People are going to work. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to get dinner on the table. They're trying to get their kid to leave the dog alone. They're trying to trying to do they're trying to live their lives, right? And so that part of the conversation is usurped by people that, in my opinion, are bad actors in this phase, in this space.
And if you present people with a narrative that fits the reality they want to be true,
right?
They not only do they not question it, they embrace it.
Right.
And they will hold it forth as being a proven reality because these experts proved it.
Right.
Whether it's on the subject of UFOs, or whether it's
COVID.
COVID, or people explaining, people will tell you exactly how Joe Biden stole the 2020 election, right, because it's been proven by these people.
Right.
If it fits the narrative you want to believe, then it's been proven.
Right. Which is, so I've always been one of those people, like I said, as raised. Now my parents weren't religious. I was raised as a Catholic, but I guess you'd call me a lapsed Catholic, because I really didn't, I just couldn't go through with it. It just, it wasn't in me. I tried. But I think that you have a lot of people out there that want to stay within their box, right? They don't want to go outside that box. And for whatever reason, I'll be perfectly My wife doesn't want to go outside that box. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to know it. She's a nurse. She does her job every day. She has her patients and she deals with that. And that's where her box is. And that's, as hard as it's not even that she doesn't believe it. Like I've shown her things like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, she's seen shit that out there you guys have not. And I'll just leave it at that. And she's looked at it and she's gone, it's not that I don't believe it. It's that there's nothing I can do about it. Like there's what am I going to do? I can do two things. I can either worry about it and let it in, get into my day, or I can just go about my day and go to my patients and go do what I got to do and pay the bills and feed the dog and, yell at you once in a while. And it's all good. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do we change minds? I've always said one of the things that we need to try and do as a community, rather than shit on one another on Twitter and create sock accounts and attack people for trying to get as much information out as we can possibly get, how do we change the narrative at soccer games, at football, at baseball? How do we change that narrative and get people to start? And they don't have to be zealots. They don't have to be crazy. But how do we get, and it's, I think,
awareness,
what is it?
just
awareness. Awareness.
No one has to become an expert on the subject. No one has to dive all the way into it. I know I was out talking to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, very smart woman, and I was telling her about some of this stuff that came up, and and she and again, it was the thing. She said, "Well, I just really don't take an interest in that because it just doesn't affect my life." And I said, "Well, out of curiosity, were you at all interested in that recent, photo, the image we got of a black hole?" And she said, "Yeah, of course, I was very interested in that. What about the James Webb Telescope? Are you interested in the results from that?" "Yes, I'm very interested in that." I said, "Those things have zero impact on your life, no impact whatsoever." And what if I told you that? Yeah, very cool. But that the UAP story is, if any part of it is true, is exponentially more likely to have an impact on your life in the future.
It is.
And so that sort of that excuse of just saying it doesn't impact me, it's not honest, is what it is, because we take interest in tons and tons of things that don't impact our lives. I love watching hockey. No impact on my life, but I love watching it.
Go Bruins. I'm sure you have a different team.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, love my
I'm
Bruins.
a Leaf fan. Why you bring the Bruins into this?
Love my Bruins.
They've ruined my life so many times.
There's been some times over the years that the Leafs and the Bruins have had a little scuffle here back and forth. But you know what? We do love a good fight now and again. There's nothing wrong with that. My wife now, talk to my wife about that, and she's gonna be, let's go. Yeah, she gets right in for that one. So it's a valid point, and but my overall, my big question is, how do we change that? How do we outreach that?
Well, one thing we have to understand is that it's not an accident that we feel this way about UFOs. I mean, those of us, not the believers. I'm talking about the fact that people don't want to hear about it, don't want to talk about it, don't want to think about it. That's not an accident.
Masterful performance by the powers that be behind the scenes. Masterful. I mean, you did it.
Let me look this up here because it's a great quote. We got it on here.
I got to get one of those soundboards where I can get like the Jeopardy theme going, and I don't have one yet. Actually, I probably do. I have like this control thing that I use for my video editing. I think that I could probably do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I will work on that.
I'm trying to find. Of course, I can never find anything. Well, maybe I won't find it in time. But it's a quote by. If I can, and again, I'm not remembering any names today. But it's basically about how at the man who basically invented modern propaganda and the public relations industry. But I can't. Oh, wait a minute, there it is. Damn, and it slipped. There we are. Edward Bernays. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, and are ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. It is they who pull the wires that control the public mind. And that wisdom, that knowledge of how public opinion works, is exactly what the Robertson panel that was instituted by the CIA in 1952. And not only did they use that mode of thinking and those techniques, a guy named Albert Speer was deeply influenced by the teachings of Bernays, and he became Hitler's propaganda minister, and basically ran the public relations program for the Nazis. So you can see where the power of this thinking is. It's not something to be dismissed. And the CIA and the United States government brought those techniques to bear on the UFO subject in 1952. And the power and strength and tenacity of social conditioning is such that even now, even after we're being shown footage of UFOs, the public mind rebels against what they're seeing, rebels against what they're hearing, and in fact just erases it from their consciousness.
It's a generational game. It's generational. It's literally generational.
Yeah. And I know so many people that I know are smart, intelligent people who read the New York Times, who, when I say, well, you read that article in 2017, right? No, I don't. What article are you talking about? And I'll tell them about it. I'll say, well, it was the front page of the Sunday Times.
Right.
And they go, no, I don't remember it. And I said, I'll say, well, what about this story that was in the same issue? Yeah.
Right. The cognitive dissonance. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's
not just that they don't read. Yeah. It's not just they don't. And I'm talking about smart people. It's not they didn't read the article. They didn't it didn't register in their consciousness that the article was there in front of them. Right. Because they tune out UFO. Whenever they see those letters, it's tuned out of their consciousness.
It's not only that, but it's also relegated, I think, not just tuned out, it's relegated to the round file, throw it in the trash, because it is a topic that's unreal, not necessarily unreal, but not real. There's a difference, I think, between unreal and not real.
As I said, Noam Chomsky wrote a book that used a quote from Bernays as its title, called Manufacturing Consent. Which he said, like, once you establish the parameters of what sensible people will talk about, then it becomes self-perpetuating, and you don't need a conspiracy to keep it going, because people will keep repairing their own mental prisons.
And it's, you can see this in action in social media. You can see it in action all the time. I think that there was I would really have to go back and find it. It's been years since I've read this, but it stuck with me over the years, that there was a guy that was, he was trying to put together his PhD thesis on psychology, right? And he did this little, it was the guy that was doing the birds are drones, or the birds are fake.
Yeah.
Right. And he put it out there, his theory that birds were put in by the CIA, and I could be getting some of this wrong because it's been years since I've read it.
Yeah.
But that was basically the gist, right? And he came out later, and I think it was somebody was talking to him and realized that you're lying to me, right? This is bullshit. And he kind of started laughing, like, he goes, yeah, this was an experiment. I wanted to see if this, and there are people today that still, even though this guy came out after he started the whole thing and said, yes, this was bullshit, I put it out there, it was an experiment, I needed to write this up, I need to do that. And people jumped on that theory that are still trying to perpetuate it today, that say, oh, no, somebody got to him. Somebody got to him, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it's the Mark Twain quote that I will misquote, that it's much easier to fool someone than to convince them that they have been fooled.
Right. And it's so and it's like
that's a wrong quoting, but that's
no, I know, I get the gist of it, but it's also the flat Earth thing, or the space is fake argument, and it's this absurd it's an absurdity that I see that takes place within certain sectors of society. And it seems like there's a manipulation that is easy to occur. So yeah, so why am I saying all this? Because it goes back to the 50s when they were able to put these things into the zeitgeist of the time, right? They said, okay,
Yeah.
swamp gas, or you saw
Yeah.
Venus moving, or you saw X, Y, Z, whatever they could come up with that wasn't something anomalous.
Yeah.
Is evident in 2024. It's
it's still
still
giving
there.
people a path to say, oh, no, that's been explained.
Right.
And the phrase "that's been explained" or "that's been debunked" is a phrase that says, I can turn off my thinking parts now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's giving people an avenue to turn off their thinking.
So how dangerous is that?
Very, very dangerous. And we should be worried about it, because we should think to ourselves, I mean, if it has been that effectively set into play on the subject of UFOs, and we're that susceptible to it, that right now, even with the overwhelming information that should tell us something real is happening that we should take seriously, and people aren't. What else have we been manipulated to not pay attention to? How many, in what other ways are we being controlled by these techniques? And people who think that, you couldn't control me with that. It's like, do you not remember growing up? Do you not remember peer pressure? Do you not remember the things you did, the things you said that weren't things you believed, but you wanted to fit in?
Mm-hmm.
Peer pressure is incredibly powerful. Belonging to the group is incredibly powerful in our psyche. Our brains are hardwired to want to belong to the group, because in the not too distant history of humanity, not belonging to the group was a death sentence. It wasn't just
Still can be. There are countries right now that if you don't step and lock and toe, you're gonna die. China is an example. As much as people, yes, China has some incredible advancements and some incredible parts of its culture that are just mind-boggling, amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are other aspects of that society that is not the society at large. It's the society that's ruling. It's that ruling class that, I mean, if you even speak out in Russia, if you're gay in Russia, you're it's a death sentence for some people.
Yeah.
And this is 2024.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, like, yeah, and you go back to how hardwired it is. It's like 30,000, 100,000 years ago. If you're in a village of hunter-gatherers and they decide they don't want you in the village anymore, if you're thrown out of the village, you will pretty quickly be eaten by something.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to die.
Numbers.
Yeah, you're going to die because human beings are the frailest creatures on the. I mean, our teeth are useless. We have no claws. We aren't very strong. We run slowly. The only thing we have is the community. That's the only advantage we have over other animals.
It's absolutely correct. And so what has occurred?
Individuals die.
Yeah, individuals die, groups survive, and it's like that's why every apocalypse movie or apocalyptic group or book or whatever you read, it's groups survive. The individuals usually do not. I mean, sure, somebody makes a trope out of an individual dude that can go around and kill everybody, but
Yeah.
So what do we do? Is there anything that we can do to change that mindset? Like, it has to be, if it happened in a generation or generations, right? So we're going back to the 50s here. I mean, even really probably a little bit before, because if you want to think about the compartmentalization of the bomb, if you want to think about the compartmentalization and the I guess the promotion of mom and dad and apple pie, that was all an ideology, an American ideology, as we were moving along.
It's just it was presented through very deliberate and sophisticated propaganda.
And I don't want people to forget this, but so I'm 50. I'm not young, but I'm not old. But
like me, sure, say like me. Yeah.
Sure, like you, like yourself.
Yeah, I'm an old guy.
Yes. So if we go back, right, and we think about, we watch all these old movies, people have to remember that when they see that black and white movie come up on their TV, those were at one time on a screen. And what did they do? The United States was masterful at propaganda. They had actual small films before the actual movie. They weren't trailers that they watched. They watched propaganda movies. I don't want to say the United States was like Germany, but I'm saying as much as Germany gave the anti-American films, America made Joe, that's why they call him G.I. Joe. They made those films. And that was a conditioning method. Period. Well, it really was.
Well, it was Edward Bernays, an American, who invented propaganda, formalized it. And it's his theories that the Germans and the Soviets
adopted,
used, and we shouldn't say just them. We were using them as well,
right? We did it. It's evident. I can go back. If you look back, there's one of those sites out there that has like all the old reels on it, like all the old movie reels, and it's literally, what are you going to do in America, young man? Are you going to join the army? And are you going to come along? And are you going to do? And it was like that. That was what you were bombarded with, because there were TVs, but it wasn't like what it is now, where everybody has a TV in every room. TV back then was big.
And you should also think about the power of movies and those newsreels, because there's an added psychological reinforcement that you're sitting in a room with hundreds of other people getting the same message at the same time. And the shared attention has incredible, it's what happens in churches. It's what happens at political rallies. It's what happens at rock concerts. That shared attention creates bonds.
Right.
And it has a powerful psychological impact. So really, those days of the movie theaters as a dominant form of communication, a dominant way of disseminating news or propaganda or opinion or lifestyle, sort of parameters of what an American lifestyle should be.
Right.
When you were going to the movie theater, when you were leaving your house, you're getting your family together, you're putting on your nice clothes. So there's ritual involved, getting, doing up your tie, getting your hat, and your wife and your children in their best clothes to go to the movies, because that's what you used to do.
Right. It was a dress-up affair.
Yeah, there was ritual, there was preparation, and then there was the coming together of the community, and then they're watching the same information and absorbing it at the same time with attention, and it's incredibly powerful. It is why movies like those great German propaganda films by the great Leni Riefenstahl's films. The power of those, watching them if we had TV at the time, watching them at home on TV wouldn't have been the same.
No.
Because you get distracted, you get up to go to the kitchen to get something to eat, your kids start talking to you, your dog wants to go for a walk. We don't have the same attention on our televisions that we had.
We do have something in our hands all the time.
Yes,
it's just moved technology.
Yeah,
it's just moved, and one of the dangers of that is a collective group of people doing the same things over and over. But we want to think that we're more. I don't want to say smarter, but maybe a little bit less naive in the time that we live as we were in the 50s. And I think more people do see those effects occurring, but our government, as shown by just a few days ago with this bullshit report that came out, they're not getting the message because they're still putting it out there. So do we think that there is a way to fight that? I found one guy online, and I'll have to try and see if I can find him again, that wants to create a rebuttal report, that wants to use the collective group to bit by bit go over each and every point of that. And I think not least of which is the fact that they really just shit on a bunch of people. As far as I'm concerned, David Grush alone is an American hero. And
yes.
What occurred? They put a hit piece out on Grush, right?
Yeah.
That he had PTSD and that he had an issue, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So there, but for the grace of God go I, because I didn't ever have any of those things that he did. I was never in combat. I've never seen my friends die in that type of situation. And yet I've gone through some shit in my life that's affected me along the ways. And I'm sure every human has had effects. And that was just
I have PTSD diagnosed from growing up with a drunk dad, you know?
So, and each and every one of us has our cross. And it was like, it was such a just snaky, sleazy, just scummy way of trying to throw something at him. And come to find out, it came from the intelligence community, right? His own brothers and brothers and sisters in some certain circumstances tried to throw him under the bus. And I feel a lot of what this Arrow report just did was try and take people like David, people like Lou, and just try and completely.
Well, the Arrow report was like the modern, basically not the modern Condon report, but the modern Condon report summary.
Right.
Because the Condon, Dr. Condon's summary was in direct opposition to the contents of the report.
Right.
But no one read the report because the summary said nothing to look at.
Right.
And so this Arrow report is just a new version of that. It's just giving people an excuse, mostly in the media. I think it's that the report is not intended for anyone other than the media.
Right.
And the media, of course, and then they have a closed door private, briefing for Green Street and and that whatever the.
So I actually got from Sue Goff. I got her exact. I can read it right here. I got her exact. I asked her. I'm all over the place here. So I asked. I'm trying to find the.
I'm guessing Green Street Barnes from the New York Times.
So I said, now that the report is out, can I get a full list of media in attendance? And this is on my email right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got it through my email. Yeah. So Steve, the attendees were Brandy Vincent from Defense Scoop, Dan Lamoth from WAPO, Oren Lieberman from CNN, Todd Lopez from Defense News, Jeff Skogel from Task and Purpose, Luis Martinez from ABC News, and Lee Hudson from Politico. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So my other question is, how did Green Street get it first?
Yeah.
Right. So where's the connection there?
Mm-hmm.
How did he have a full reporting of this before the report fully dropped? Right. So something's missing. Something is missing. Right. There is a correlation there that's not making any sense, because of those people, Green Street was not on that list. Yeah. So either A, he's getting his information from one of those reporters, highly doubtful, but possible.
Yeah.
He's getting fed information from Arrow and or Sue Gao, whatever you want to call her, or he's getting DOD and or some other information, because DOD runs Arrow, right? So it begs the question, where the fuck did he get his information ahead of everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the names that are official, that came officially out. I got headers and everything. You want to see the proof of that? I've got it right here, right there. So it begs the question, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. And why, and just, what, where's the stake for him in his, I can't post on well, I think he's dropped off a little bit, but I used to, anytime I posted anything on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, he would show up in it, and I'm not a very important player in this subject, but every single time I said anything, I would have Green Street and Mick West would show up, and and I find it hard to believe that they have me listed in their notifications on their phones. So there's some sort of coordination going on.
Well, not only is there some sort of coordination going on, if you look at the Wikipedia scandal that's going on, and all the other shit that's going on, with Sue Gerbic, I think her name is, or something like that.
Yeah,
it's the skeptics, I
The
mean,
J.C. Penney photographer. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, Mick West is a failed game developer. So what does that tell you? Yet he is the expert on CNN. I mean, he is like the lapdog when he goes on. He's able to debunk everything. He's got all the answers for everything.
Well,
So
Bill Nye the Science Guy got tired.
yeah, yeah. Don't even get me going on that one. So yeah, but it is just, it's this overwhelming anti-narrative that begs the question, where the hell is it coming from? Where and why is it happening the way it's happening? And I do have, I believe, some answers. And part of those answers is there are a few people behind the scenes that have pissed some people off. Probably some very powerful people, and people that are dealing with, I would say, let's how do I put this? Private industry. I'll just leave it at that. That have legacy programs, and Ross just came out and said something pretty impressive, and that was that he said, I now believe 100% that we have legacy crash retrieval programs, which means, so I have talked to Ross behind the scenes, and I wouldn't call him a friend, but I would call him somebody that I have spoken with. I'm telling you flat out, if Ross is coming out and saying those things, more than likely he's seen some other things that he can't put out there, because he is not going to put that particular part of his life and reputation on the line if he's not pretty certain. And it begs some questions.
Yes, because he's a journalist with a long history and reputation. Long before, I mean, he's only been involved with the UAP story for a small number of years. Yeah. And again, he's one of those guys, and it tends to be the pattern that if anyone with an honesty and an open mind looks at the evidence, they become someone who wants to know what's going on. They don't dismiss it. They don't become debunkers. They become like Ross Coulthart.
Right.
They become convinced there's something serious happening.
I mean, just look at Project Blue Book. I mean, he tried to go into
Hynek,
went into it, a full-on skeptic, came out of it knowing something is going on, and knowing, I mean, crying out loud, he was even in Close Encounters. Spielberg put him at the end because he was such a pivotal player in what Spielberg was putting together for art. And I maintain that's not art. That's probably a pretty good indication of what the reality is. And we're talking this back in the 70s, right? I mean, look at the movie. You've got orbs. You've got these little things that are flying through the air, colors. You've got different species. You've got actual technology, because there is a technological component to this.
Yeah. You have the adverse effects of proximity to UFOs, the burns.
You've got burns. You've got, that leads to the question.
The downloaded information.
Yeah, it begs the question: how much have we known, and how long have we known it?
Yeah, no, I think, I'm not sure if Spielberg's ever gone on the record of saying, but that he was being given information. I mean, obviously he was consulting with Hynek.
Hynek was one of his consultants.
Yeah. And so was Jacques Vallée.
Vallée was the French guy in the movie that was. It wasn't Vallée, but
that Francois Truffaut played. Yeah. But so they were both like advising. In fact, Vallée was arguing with Spielberg, saying don't make him extraterrestrial, and he's it hurts the narrative.
Right, and so you have to ask yourself, if we're thinking about this, right? And we're looking at the decades, it's evident, I believe, to anybody that does any modicum of actual research, that not only is there a great global hiding of this information, but that there is something very much anomalous going on. And I think one of the other things that really is so cool to me, because I'm allowed, or not allowed, but I'm able to look at technology on a different wavelength, because like the woo stuff is hard for me, but the technology is so cool because it's a tacit thing that I can kind of touch and put my fingers on, right?
Yeah.
So why is there this is a question that I have. Why is there
Yeah.
such a technological
Hang on
component?
one
Go ahead.
second. I ain't open the door from the patio for my dogs.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We're talking about the technology that's involved in this, and I know that you've had some time and you spent a little time with Jeremy and
Yeah, a lot of
have you seen anything that has been kind of like, what the hell is that? Or I mean, like, I know Jeremy
well,
put out the what do you call it,
the
the not
jellyfish.
squid,
Yeah, well, I saw that like 3 years ago.
yeah,
Jeremy showed that to me 3 years ago. We watched it over and over again one afternoon. Which also says something to the fact that Jeremy and George, that they are very careful about what they release and when they release things. They're not like just what they're not like I found this on the internet and I'm going to put it out. They go back and they vet their sources and they get corroborating witnesses, and like Jeremy. I know Jeremy talked to like multiple people that were on that base,
right,
that confirmed the story. So it's not just the video. He has multiple corroborating witnesses on it. And was sent things from multiple sources. So I saw that, and then of course there was the fact that Jeremy and I actually had an encounter with a UFO together at one point, which was a first for both of us. So we shared that. And,
oh, you got to tell me what happened. Now you put it out there, I got to know.
Yeah. Well, it was I was visiting Jeremy, and we were out walking his dog just after nightfall, and in a valley, and it was a beautiful night out walking through these orange groves on a country road, and I was looking at the commercial air traffic off in the distance, and seeing what a clear night it was, and just being able to just watch all of these lights traveling around, going in and out of the airports, and going, and I turned to Jeremy and I said, tonight would be a great night to see something. And less than a minute later, Jeremy goes, Dave, turn around. And I turned around, and back where I had just been looking at the air traffic, there's this orangey golden light pulsating in that same area, but about 10 times the size of all the other lights. And we stood there, both of us, like we didn't say anything else after that. After Dave turned around, we stood there silently, watching this thing go around about 3/4 of the valley until it got right in front of us, hung in front of us for about a minute, I'm guessing, and then gradually went off behind the mountains ahead of us. And except for at one point where Jeremy said, I'm not even going to try to take a picture out loud. And I have a theory about that. We didn't speak. And we also didn't have any response to it. We didn't have any emotional response to it. And, obviously a subject I've been interested in most of my life, and a subject that Jeremy has dedicated a huge chunk of his life to investigating. And Jeremy's a guy who practices getting his phone out, and,
right.
So, I mean, my impression is that our response to what so there's a woo aspect to it. What we saw looked like solid craft. It looked like it was a machine, not a human machine, but a machine. And it was this.
How big? Do you know how big you think?
I'm guessing it from where we were. It seemed like it was maybe the size of a Mack truck.
That big?
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of overall length and mass to it, it was big. I mean, it was far enough away from us that and that we were still able to, but we could still see a lot of detail. As I said, the body of it was like a rounded triangle with a slice off the front of it that had 3 white lights pulsing in that slice off the front, and the body of it was pulsing this orangey gold light, and it was sort of a fuzziness to the body of it. and the white lights on the front were pulsing at a different rate. And as I said, it came from where I had been looking right after I asked for it, circled the valley until it got right in front of us, and hung there long enough for us to absorb like whatever we needed to from it. And then it went away. But again, I felt like the thing we were looking at was entirely in control of how we were responding. And I'm guessing Jeremy, because he has spent his life investigating and making films and releasing video, that when he's saying, I'm not even going to try to take a picture, that was him struggling against whatever it was that was tamping down our responses. And then the next day I thought, well, I should maybe try to draw this while I still have it clear in my memory. So I got my iPad out and opened an app I had never used before. And within 15 minutes was able to find all the tools I needed in this app I'd never used, and was able to draw a really accurate picture. And I can't draw is the other thing. I have no ability to draw, but I was able to draw a good sort of sort of three-dimensional perspective drawing of this thing that we saw from like a 3/4 angle, which is how it presented itself to us. And if I was to try and draw it again right now, I couldn't. So I was able to do something I can't do in order to communicate it to Jeremy and, to say, is this what we saw? So there's those elements, there's some woo elements in it, but on top of it, it was also a very much a nuts and bolts sighting of a structured craft that was blocking out the background and was moving and moving silently. So that's the gist of the experience.
So what you're saying is there wasn't giant fans in it making a giant sound, or so no. This wasn't one of those things that Mr. K put out there and said that this is obviously it sounds as if it had some type of anti-gravity. I mean, you can't scientifically prove that, but it sounds as if that's what it is.
It definitely had I guess those observables,
right?
It definitely had no visible means of propulsion, no flight surfaces, no control surfaces. It wasn't an aerodynamic shape, because I said it was triangular, but it was the wide end of the triangle was what was coming towards us.
Do you think that it had, you talk about the woo, do you think it was, a lot of people I hear that have these interactions / sightings believe that there was a connected consciousness between whatever it was and whatever you are. And you kind of made mention that you said, well, maybe Jeremy was responding to, whether consciously or unconsciously, I'm not even going to take a picture of it. Maybe it was trying to say, yeah, we're here, we're real, but you're not going to take a picture. Or, I mean, I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me, that maybe Jeremy had something that was said, hey,
yeah, don't. And he was fighting it. And both of us had our phones on us and neither of us took a picture. And
has it affected your thought process moving forward as you get deeper into this subject? I mean, has it been, I like some people I know that have seen and experienced things from young ages, has propelled their entire life. Jacques Vallée is one of these people that it's taken, I mean, he's what, 80 something or close to, or his entire adult life has been part learning what this is, and he even says to this day he doesn't completely know. I think he knows more.
Well,
but
I think it hasn't really affected me in that way, except that because I'd already come to accept just intellectually, based on evidence that was available to me, that this was a real phenomena, and or these are real phenomena, whatever these things are that keep showing up, and that nobody knows what it is, and we should try to figure it out. So I was already firmly in that belief that this is a real thing that needs to be understood, and that there's something, and that there's a social problem that it underlines. our inability to address new and novel things, and our inability to break away from social norms, that fear, all that fear. So that interested me. So I think all it did was it took away any lingering thoughts that maybe that maybe this is something more easily explained, or uh, any it took away any aspect of conjecture in my mind. It was like, oh well, there, I don't know anything more than I knew before, but I know that I saw this thing, and I know that this thing that I saw wasn't some other thing. There's no prosaic object that you can substitute for the thing I saw.
And I'll say that, when we look at some of the technology across, let's say, the past 50 years, right? And really, when you think about it, I think it was the U2, whatever it was, the B2, with the thing with the huge wings that.
Oh, the U2 spy plane.
Yeah, I mean, that was what, the 50s, 60s that thing really came out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you think about the technology that we have seen over the past however many 50 to 60 years, there has been some pretty incredible advancements that human beings have made. Very incredible. But to my knowledge, and there's this secret craft that is supposed to be an anti-gravity craft that was maybe reverse engineered from NHI technology, and it's basically a giant, what you're kind of describing, which is a gigantic triangle flying through the sky. But my problem with that is this. I'm not saying that we might not have figured out something to do with something like that, but the observables that you see and are reported from something like that, you have to suspend your disbelief for a moment and think that we have broken materials physics, we have broken propulsion physics, we have broken gravity physics, we have broken human physics, because the acceleration with which some of these craft demonstrate, whether it's a triangle, an orb, tic-tac, whatever it is, when you put those into consideration, you have to accept the fact that because of these observables, instantaneous acceleration is the first one that comes to mind. There are so many technologies that we have to have beaten in order to make that occur, right? Instantaneous acceleration. Human beings can go up to a certain G-force, and after that, we become dead and goo beyond, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Knuth from UAPX, I've had a discussion with him. He's been on, and we talked about, Tic Tac having, what was it, either 5,400 or 5,900 G forces going from 80,000 to 20,000 feet, right? That's the G force effect of 1.7 seconds.
He calculated the median point acceleration,
right?
Assuming it was a steady acceleration through the and deceleration.
Right. So when you put that into, so right there, if it's a craft with anything that isn't a lead ball inside, it's pretty much smudge at that point, unless it has a field around it.
Yes, and we don't. Not only could no human survive those stresses, we don't have any material science that could survive this. We don't have
diamonds can't survive it.
Yeah, we don't have anything that can survive it.
Right.
The only way that can really work is if there is some sort of inertial dampening. If they are, to even bring it back to relativity, that to the pilots of these craft, probably to them it would appear that they are not moving at all.
Right. You just hear that boom, 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 boom. They're there.
Yeah.
There's no movement.
Yeah, and that they're just maybe they found a way to move an actual pocket of space-time around them through, and if that's the case, then to the passengers, the pilots, there'd be no inertia because they're not moving.
Right.
At all. The space is moving.
Space is moving, but they're not.
Yeah. The same way that, our physicists will tell you that our universe is expanding faster than the speed of light.
Correct.
but we don't perceive it, you know,
Well,
because
the
we're
Earth is
part of it.
moving through,
Yeah,
what is it? And we don't perceive that at all.
yeah. I mean, we're
But that's at a
embedded in
huge level. I
space-time.
mean, you have to
Well,
have
I'm
huge
saying the
mass.
planet Earth is embedded in space-time,
Right.
which is expanding faster than the speed of light, and accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, so yeah, we are currently experiencing what it would be like to be in a space-time bubble. You know,
It's there's a lot of questions out there that I mean, like, we could sit here for 6 hours, but it longer. But it is getting to the point where I think that we need to have um, more whistleblowers come through. I think that we need to
yeah,
have a community that stops with the sock puppet accounts, that stops with roasting people, that stops with the bullshit, and starts to accept the fact that we need to move this discussion forward in such a way that maybe is a little bit more elevated than what we have done in the past. I'm not saying you're part of that problem. You're
mm,
not. I'm just saying that there are factions within that we have to. I believe is if we truly want disclosure out there to the world, some things have to change, and some minds have to be changed, and some maybe a little bit more cooperation, and maybe a little bit more less calling people bullshit artists and grifters and this and that, and think for a second, well, maybe we're all trying to get there, right? Maybe we're all trying in our own ways to get there, to help and to affect some change in this world and to understand what our place is. And I think it starts with a little kindness here and there. I think that's the beginning of it. But I think that also we have to be vigilant in calling out and seeing when there are truly bad actors in the space, and really truly say that's not okay. That's part of it. And uh,
yeah.
I think it's a beginning
Well,
stage that we need to take.
I think we're early. I think yes, and I think it's gaining traction. And certainly, I think the very fact of Gary Nolan being a public figure on this subject now, Avi Loeb being a public figure on this subject, people like Kevin Knuth coming out and just being very clear and
Right.
Michio Kaku made a real turnaround,
Yes, he did.
um, you know, and and these are important thinkers, you know and the people who have the most to lose in a way
Truly, truly.
by acknowledging this because they get knocked off their pedestal by this.
Right.
They get displaced. They're as the highest intelligences we can seek, they're suddenly going, oh, we're not even qualified to get in the league with whatever is going on.
Well, Michio Keiko took, I mean, a 180, really. I mean, he's always been
Yes.
open, I think, but I think he's probably been pulled aside and showed some things from some people. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's probably true of, let's say we talk about some Congress people. There was, there was some pushback, even I think during the hearing, um, where Burleson, for example, and I talked about this before, really came out as kind of almost an aggressive skeptic. Like, I got an aggressive kind of tone from him when he was talking to Grush and to Fravor. And I had this almost like a pushback thing. And now he's almost a 180 proponent of getting this
Yeah.
information out.
Yes. In fact,
Wild.
he seems like a guy that other people have to keep going. Shh, not no no
Yeah.
that you
Right.
can't say. You can't say that.
Right.
He's constantly being kind of uh corralled by the other um, representatives. Um, no, I think
That tells you
it's
something, does it not?
yeah
Does that not say that this guy came into this thing as a bold skeptic and
yeah
came out, and since that discussion that they had in Congress is really 180 degrees in the opposite direction. Like, he is almost
yeah
like, just like you said, like, all right, we ain't playing this game anymore. I've seen some shit and we're going to talk about it. And you're almost right. It's almost like he's being corralled, because I think
mhm,
somebody got to him
yeah
and showed him a few things. That's my theory on that.
yeah no, and I think that's I mean, for one thing, I also, to me, I have a very human concern, which is that I believe that the cover up and the disinformation, the stigmatization has caused a lot of very, very serious harm to people over decades, like destroyed lives, in fact, ended lives.
Ended lives. Yeah.
And that's not okay. And so, like, I remember at one point when I was still willing to converse with Mick West, saying that you're debunking the kind of what you do has is not benign. It is not without victims. It is people suffer. Um, People have died because of exactly what you are doing. Lives have been destroyed, marriages destroyed, careers destroyed um, through this very sloppy debunking.
Right.
And so I don't see it as benign, or and I can't really take Mick West as being harmless anymore, or any of those people as being harmless,
I agree with you.
even if they are well intentioned, they are causing harm to human beings, and they're doing it without thinking about it, and that bothers me.
As small as my platform is, and I do have a good following, but as small as my platform is, I certainly don't have a New York Times that are going to be reading, or I don't have that level. However, I have contacted and talked to certain people that have literally told me, be careful. I've heard that from intelligence, from people in this community that are actively pushing for disclosure behind the scenes, to be careful. And
Yeah.
when I asked, well, what does that mean, to be careful? I've been warned away from absolutely certain names. I have been told, be careful, do not contact them, do not get in discussions with them. When I ask why, sometimes I get vague answers, but there's been a few, I'm not mentioning names, but there's been a few names that have come up that have said, do not have conversations with these people. And they're behind the scenes people, not quite as well known, but have held into and onto powers within the CIA, powers within Department of Defense, high level people that I was trying to reach out to, and I shared it with a couple of my contacts that, hey, do you know this person? And they said, listen, they aren't what they seem. Be very careful. Just know. I don't want to. I don't want to come out and say that they've had people go away. Um, you can infer from that what I'm saying, but I don't want to say that that was the level. But there's, like, just what you said, they'll go after your careers, they'll go after your families, they'll all of a sudden there's something on your computer that's not supposed to be there, and then they've got and it happens, man. It does happen. I know that sounds conspiracy like, and I know that that sounds insane, but it's not. It really happens.
Yeah, well, George Knapp has been dealing with that for more than 30 years. I mean, he's had people, and prior to engaging with the UFO story, George used to go up against the mafia.
Right.
So he's had similar threats in reporting on UFOs to what he's had reporting on the mafia. In fact, more I think George would say the threats that he's had on the UFO story have been more sinister.
You know what? Someone else that I have spoken to very recently said the same thing. This is a person that has been in war zones, has kicked in doors, has been fighting for our nation behind the scenes, both in the intelligence community as well as military. This person was a badass and said directly to me, since I become involved in the UAP discussion, he says, and he has active death threats right now, right this second,
Yeah.
has said, I have had more death threats and more concern about my own life than I did banging down doors in the Middle East. He said, I
Yeah.
absolutely, that to me is insane, right? That's crazy to me. Like, is
Yeah.
it coming just from, and Ross just put out a thing that he's receiving death threats. Is it,
Yeah.
is it just unhinged people, or is there a real concerted effort to put this genie back in by albeit large or small group of people? I don't know the answer to that. I can suspect it, but I have no proof of it. But
Hmm.
Scary.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly there's no need for the pushback if there's no substance to the
To the
thing, to
rumors.
what's being disclosed. You know, there's you know, if like if Chuck Schumer has just been a hapless idiot who's been deceived by a bunch of zealots in writing his legislation, why does Mike Turner, who just happens to represent Wright-Patterson Air Force Base
Exactly.
in his district, why does he go to such great efforts to gut that legislation if if Schumer's just gone off the deep end? In fact, why wouldn't you just use that as a political tool against Chuck Schumer?
Can't. Because he knows if he pushes it too much, something's bound to pop up.
Yeah.
So
you wind up with Schumer and Mike Rounds not only writing this legislation, but then defending it after it's been gutted in the Senate, making speeches where they refer to each other as my good friend Chuck Schumer or my colleague Mike Rounds.
And still, if you remember, the most amazing thing that came out of that was saying non-human intelligence on the floor of the Senate.
Yes. Well, the most amazing thing that come out of it is that no one covered it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It almost seemed like they were sitting there in chambers, like, an echo chamber. It was nothing there, but you're right. It's mind-boggling.
Every little thing that Chuck Schumer ever says gets covered, except this. Everything. Every comment he makes, any comment he makes about any other politician, any comment he makes on any issue will be on the Sunday shows, will be
microscope
dissected.
Is out.
But for some reason, Mike Rounds, two political enemies, having each other's back and proclaiming that they will continue to fight for UAP disclosure legislation on the Senate floor in official speeches.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it amazing?
It's in the Senate. It's in the Senate record, and zero. You got that idiots like Barnes at the New York Times.
Oh, don't even go. I just don't even. Yeah.
I'm just saying. You got the Washington Post and the New York Times essentially publishing verbatim press releases from the DoD, with zero journalistic sort of introspection or
no, it's just verbatim. Let's just post what they said and nothing to see here. It's the old ditto head
press release.
It's the old Rush ditto head. Blah. Rhetoric, bullshit. Here it is. It's true.
But how is it that these reporters saw nothing newsworthy in these two men who have nothing else in common, have never agreed on a single policy, defending each other and defending the legislation they wrote? How do you not cover that? It's insane.
It is.
Like literally, it is the sign of a pathology.
It is.
There is a pathological unwillingness in the media to cover the story. And it is unhealthy. It's bad for democracy. It's bad for our culture. It's certainly bad for the respectability of the news media. Because if you can,
do you think that there is what happens? And we'll finish up on this. So there's two things I want to ask before we finish up. One, what happens? Because I think you probably have some more information behind the scenes as well. What happens when the next round of whistleblowers come out, and they will come out, that will basically open this to the point where it is pretty unassailable? What's going to happen to the mainstream media then? Are they going to get a pass? And two-parter here. The people in Arrow who work for us, right? They are supposed to work for the American people. They are supposed to work for our governments, both north and south of us, are supposed to work for our people. Do they get a pass?
Yes.
Almost what could be a pass? I mean, like
they'll get a pass because they'll be the ones deciding how to report it. They gave themselves a pass on weapons of mass destruction. I remember, watching Colin Powell at the UN and going, okay, that all sounds pretty plausible, but I'm not an expert on these things. Where are the experts to analyze what Colin Powell has just told us? And I would go to the newspapers. Where no experts analyzing it. Nobody giving a counter narrative on what Colin Powell just said. I watched CNN. Nobody. Everyone's just reporting what Colin Powell is telling us, and the media failed in their job, and literally countless lives have been lost as a result.
Absolutely, both sides.
Yeah, I mean, certainly more Iraqis than and Afghans than Americans.
You did a bang up job forces. For our relationships too, our relations moving forward.
Yeah, and my country, Canada, went to war in Afghanistan. We honored our NATO agreement and went to war. We didn't go into Iraq, but but these are the impacts that. But the fact that nobody challenged what Colin Powell was saying at the UN. And we also had a lot of politicians. We also had like Hillary Clinton backed it up.
Right.
And she wasn't challenged. Nobody was challenged. And count, I say countless because we don't know how many people died. But I think other than
is that complicit by omission, or is that just complicit in general?
Well, I mean, you saw what happened when Stephen Colbert actually took the media to task for it.
Mm-hmm.
He was pilloried for it in the media. He was hilarious, and he was the only person that took the media to task. At the correspondence dinner. And
well, look at and if we go over the pond a little bit right now, whether you like or hate him, it doesn't matter. But Russell Brand, who calls out the media in his country and even here, the second he started he was the media darling for the longest time.
Yeah.
But then he started to see some cracks, right? And again, I don't know Russell. I don't necessarily ascribe to his politics, but at the same time, he does hold to task media. And you saw what happens. Now, whether the allegations against him, I'm not belittling anybody that comes forth with an allegation. If they're real, then they deserve to be heard. But what I'm saying is I find a lot of this very convenient. All right. Because this is a guy that basically said, look, I was a whore when I was a young man. I will tell you flat out. I was a cad. I tried to fuck anything that moved. I fully admit it. But I would never go against a woman. Now, whether I believe or doesn't, it's not up for debate. What I'm talking and what I'm speaking to is you look at the people that go against the mainstream narrative and push back against the mainstream narrative. And you're right, with Colbert, that's the same thing. You're going to catch hell. And they have the power to do so.
Yeah. Well, look at Noam Chomsky, a man who is pretty widely accepted as one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century. Is in his home country virtually unknown, and certainly unreported on. Before social media, before YouTube and the internet became a way to disseminate lectures and things, he's somebody that gets called upon everywhere in the world except America to comment.
Right.
But because he, for example, was going very far back, critical of Israeli policies. He was decried as an anti-Semite, a self-loathing Jew, is the term.
Oh, it's easy to throw. Yeah. It's so easy to throw him out there. It's just And once it's out there, it's tough to pull back.
And the consistent theme is that you don't address the substance. You simply have ad hominem, character assassination. And again, character assassination is in the Robertson panel, as one of the techniques. And it was Albert Speer understood the power of character assassination, So it's powerful, and that's the technique that constantly gets used.
It even gets used in the microcosm through Green Streets and Mick. And now,
Yeah.
I think Mick is less attacking the person and trying to just debunk the overall narrative,
Yes.
as opposed to the person. With Green Street will attack the person.
Yeah. Oh no, Mick West approaches it in a gentlemanly way.
Right. I agree.
Green Street is a rabid dog, you know. And yeah, and it's just he's just calling everyone grifters, and basically, and it just seems like a guy who never got over the fact that he misreported the difference between ATIP and OSAP.
Oh yeah, he's still on.
You made me look stupid.
Yeah, he is still ripping into that, and I'm just like,
yeah, and it's pretty simple to explain.
Right, it is, but it's and again, I read a couple. I promise I'm wrapping this up. But after I saw this a couple times, they're like, oh, it's so nice to see Lou wasn't a part of ATIP and that they acknowledged that this was an ATIP. I'm like, yeah, here I got for you right here from Harry Reid's office, signed by Harry Reid, that ATIP was an official fucking agency, funded, and you're still going to go with the arrow response from Kirkpatrick, who put this shit report out that has so many inconsistencies and looks like it was done on the Wiki Skeptics page. You're still going to go with that, right? You're still going to go with that narrative.
Yes, or even the fact that the Pentagon officially had to retract their dismissals.
But they still, it's like they harp on just this little thing.
Lou won his case against the Pentagon.
He won. Not only that, but then they get that pissing contest between. Was he born in Texas or Florida? Was he born in Texas? He said he was born in Texas. It's shown that he's born in Texas. There was a report recently that did his genealogy, and he was born in no, he was born in Florida. And it's like they're just trying to attack every bit of the man, but not. Yeah. And they try to attack the substance too, but they really try to attack the man, and it's what they tried to do with Grush. They tried to attack the man. Just as you said earlier, David Grush still has not been proven to be full of it. In fact, many big names have come forward, including the Inspector General, and said David's claims are not only being taken seriously, but they all have merit, or most of what he says has merit.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a little cherry picking going on there, but I'll tell you, Dave, that seems to me.
Everybody came out of the skiff saying that Grush was corroborated.
What's that tell you? I mean,
tell me, can someone show me the person who went into that skiff for that briefing from the ICIG and came out saying, well, turns out it's all fake.
Big nothing burger. Yeah. Didn't happen. Happen.
No.
All right, Dave, I'm going to let you finish out because do you have anything else that you want to bring up?
No.
That you haven't?
Nope. No.
But yeah, I'll let you go get back to the dogs. I got to get to mine too. We're at 2 hours and 22 minutes. I allowed an hour and 15 for this, and we went a little long, but it was.
Well, I enjoyed the conversation very much.
I as well. It was a lot of fun, and I'm going to reach out to you again in the background so that we can talk a little bit more.
I would love that.
I'll share a few things, and I'm sure he's out there. I'm going to make sure. See, I'm not going to tell him I said this, but to Michael Ian Black, if you are watching and listening like you say you're supposed to be, he's a good friend of mine. So you better say that you remember me saying this. So I'll say hi to Michael. So he better be.
Me too. I was on a Zoom with Michael just a few days ago.
Nice. So he's a good dude. I like him a lot. He's all for exposing this.
And he was in a pretty good sketch troupe too. So
I mean they did all right.
They're all right.
They're okay. They did okay. I remember I have to do this for my wife. Crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. Yeah. My late father-in-law, just quick anecdote before we go. My late father-in-law passed away just under a year ago. Kids in the Hall was his thing. Man, did he laugh. Did you make him laugh? This guy, it was literally, we had to buy him bootlegs before. I'm sorry I'm saying that, but we had to buy him bootlegs before it came out and before you could stream on not DVD, on cassette, disc whatever you call it, VHS, because he had to watch it. It just was like his thing. So on behalf of my wife's family, yeah,
sorry that he's
was,
passed, but I'm glad he
but you made him laugh. So yeah, he loved it. Every time you walk in the room, he went like that. So he was, yeah, he was good. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you made his life a good moment there for a good number of years. He liked it.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dave, for joining me, and everybody. This has been another edition of Dear People of Earth, and I'm going to talk to Dave some more in the background, so maybe I'll have some more nuggets here moving forward. Thank you, Dave, for being on here.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dave. Bye-bye.